Hello YouTube, today I'm going to talk to you about siding against the meta. And we're going to start right here with Kinetic Soldier. He's a machine type that gains 2,000 attack points during the damage step when he battles a warrior type. So he's a good side deck card against samurais and heroes, or any random warrior deck you may encounter. Next we're going to go with Effect Veiler. It negates the effect of any face-up monster on the field. It's main decked in most decks, but some decks will side it, or at least side a couple copies of it, just in case they run into that matchup where it is a good card to have. Next is Fossil Dyna. When this card is flipped face up, it destroys all special summon monsters, so it's commonly sided against things like wind-ups, or samurais, or anything that will special summon a lot, because it'll take care of all those monsters in one shot. Next is Gemini Imps. This card is basically only sided against Dark World, but you need something to side against Dark World, so it'll negate the activation of any card that requires you to discard, and then you draw a card. Next is Cyber Dragon. With machines being relevant, once again, you want your Cyber Dragons, so you can use your Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon to contact fuse with their monsters. It basically makes it a good special summon, then you get rid of their problem. Next is Max C. It basically allows you to ditch it to the graveyard, and anytime your opponent special summons, you draw one card. So it basically just keeps giving you pluses, and if they can't OTK you, then you're going to have hopefully a good setup. Next I'll go with some spells that are commonly used. System Down. Also good against the machines. You pay 1,000 life points, and it banishes all face-up machine-type monsters your opponent controls and in their graveyard. So basically, it's pretty devastating to anything, especially mid to late game when they have their field set up and their graveyard set up. Next is Soul Taker. All it does is target one monster on the field and destroy it, and your opponent gains 1,000. But it's good for getting rid of big problem monsters that you have no other answer to. Next is Nobleman of Crossout. There are more flip effect monsters being used now, so this takes care of them. You destroy one face down monster and remove it from play. If it's a flip effect monster, both players remove all copies of that monster from their deck, and then they shuffle. Next is Defissure. This takes care of decks that use their graveyard a lot, like Gravekeepers, Chaos Dragons, Dark Worlds, anything that is graveyard heavy. It gets rid of all those monsters, so it's a good card to have. Next is Goes in Match. This is more deck specific because it can only really be played in decks that are of a one particular attribute. So decks like Evols and Dark Worlds will run it because they're all respectively Fire and Darks. And it's pretty devastating to any of most of the meta decks because like wind-ups are all different attributes. And the same thing with like samurais and most of the decks anyway. Next is Macrocosmos. It basically banishes any card that's sent to the graveyard, spells, traps, and monsters, so it gives them no access to anything in the graveyard, which is good. Next is Soul Drain. Negates the activation of monster effects that activate in the graveyard, so it stops that Dark World stuff. I believe the Atlanteans also activate in the graveyard, so it'll be a good card against them once they become at their full strength. And any other deck that utilizes graveyard effects. Lastly is Royal Decree. Basically against Chain Burn, anything that is really trap heavy, Gladiator Beast. It's just a good card to have because if you play it, you're going to want it. And that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for listening. There are other cards that I do not have copies of that are not as relevant, but I might make another video on those once I can obtain them. Thank you for listening. Rate, comment, subscribe. You guys have a good day.